The Kiwanis Police Officer of the Year Award was started in 1989, and we're making the 2018 presentation today. So that means this is our 30th year to have this program. Here's the way we're going to run this today. We're going to call Chief O'Rourke to come up next. He's going to tell us a little bit about the selection process. His department makes the selection. We don't do that. But he's going to tell us how that works. They have quarterly people and the yearly and so forth. Then he's going to tell us a little bit about our recipient, Sergeant Nick John, and a little bit about him. And then we're going to have Sergeant John come up and tell us a little bit about himself and his family and what he does on the job. While I'm thinking about it, in case you're not being booked into the jail, you might want to go down and go in the lobby, because when I went in there the other day to pick up the master plaque, we're on our second master plaque, by the way, but they're both in there. But I've forgotten how cool the entrance to the police station is. So if you have not done that, I highly recommend it. It's got a historical perspective of all the police stuff from many years ago. We might ask Chief O'Rourke to tell us a little bit about that too. But it's very cool. If you haven't done it, very worthwhile to do. So with that, I'm going to call up Chief Brian O'Rourke.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you all, thank the Kiwanis for doing this every year. And like the Judge said, since 1989, that's quite a span of time. This is the only civic group that does recognize the Officer of the Year, and that's pretty special. So the way we select our Officer of the Year, it's done by our administrators. There's one for each quarter, and they're nominated by their supervisors. It's definitely not a self-nomination. And we take each Officer of the Quarter at the end of the year, then we, as the administrators, and I probably failed to introduce Captain Tim Jacoby over here too, is one of the administrators, is also Nick's boss. We select from those four the Officer of the Year. So all of the officers that are nominated have done an outstanding job and have put themselves into a position to be nominated for that kind of award. Those officers of the quarter also get a certificate, they're recognized, and they also get a commendation, which allows them to get an extra personal day. So basically they get a day off as a reward for Officer of the Quarter. Officer of the Year is a little bit more special, but that's how they're selected. Sergeant John has been with us for about 14 years. He's been in patrol and investigations and then promoted to sergeant. He's pretty well excels and has excelled in investigations. His specialty is juvenile crimes against children, which is a pretty hard job. It's pretty difficult investigations, but that's pretty much, I think, his specialty. He would agree with that. Everywhere that Nick's been, in the patrol end, in investigations end, he's excelled. He's done an outstanding job, has an exceptional attitude and exceptional aptitude for police work. So it's nice to recognize him as Officer of the Year and for 2018, and you only get it once. So with that, I'd like to...
I forgot to mention one thing. After Sergeant John gets up in a little bit, we're going to field questions from the audience. So this is your chance to get to know anything you want about the police department, so be thinking of your questions.
None of you guys.
Well, first off, thank you to the Kiwanis Club for this great honor. Thank you guys for coming out today. I know the weather is less than desirable out there. We have a lot of guys out working right now on the streets. And remember those guys today as they're out pushing cars and everybody's sliding around. We've been very busy today. My name is Nick John. I am a sergeant with the police department. I started down there May 9th, 2005. I moved here from Cleo Springs, America. I actually was a postman prior to coming to the Enid Police Department. I delivered mail in Fairview, Oklahoma. And then I married my high school sweetheart. We've been married 17 years now. She's a Chisholm pre-K teacher, Mindy John. They're out of school today. I asked her if I needed to come pick her up, and she said she'd probably just stay home today. I have 3 kids, Abby, Emma, and Easton. Abby's 16. Emma and Easton are twins. They're 11, and they're a handful. My career at the police department, a lot of these guys have stories about good and bad. Mine's been good. I cannot complain about my career at the Enid Police Department. Started out May 9, 2005 in patrol, went to night shift. I spent about a year and a half, 2 years on night shift. The administration and chief graciously allowed me to get a shot at my first detective job with the police department. I did adult crime fraud for about 6 months, and the job came up for juvenile investigations. Now, Sergeant Reddick was a juvenile investigator, and he was your officer of the year last year. And I'm honored to follow him and what he's done he's got a long career. Many of these guys you see in here from the police department have been officers of the year priors. And so I got that first job as a juvenile investigator, and I wasn't sure what I was getting into. When you say you're going to do juvenile investigations, that opens a broad spectrum of things you can do. That was eye-opening for me. I did that for about 6 years. After those 6 years, I had what I would say enough of juvenile investigations. Everybody in here knows those will wear on you after a while. Those kind of investigations are very pull at your heartstrings, and so those get very, very demeaning and very hard for your. So after that, I was allowed, took the sergeant's test, promoted to sergeant, went back to the streets, spent more time on nights, afternoons, and a little bit of morning shift. During that time is when I got on the Enid SWAT team. I'm currently active on the police department SWAT team. I am a negotiator and also a sniper. And when I say sniper, I went to speak at my daughter's school, the middle school one time, and they were asking me what I did for this police department. And I said, well, I'm a sniper. And so I went, all right, boys, if you're trying to get close to my daughter, date my daughter, just remember that means I can hit you from a long ways away. Well, my daughter, I look up in the stands, my daughter is now curled up in a ball, hiding, and all the boys are looking at her. So I haven't had any problems yet. There's no boys that have come around. She's a junior, and I'm doing pretty good. When I'm promoted, like I said, spent some time on the streets, back on the streets, working with all the guys. I got a chance to go back in detectives where I'm at now. I am currently the detective sergeant with the police department. Myself and Sergeant Reddick, we're kind of partners. We do this together. We deal with all the investigations for the police department. Over the years, there's been good times, there's been bad times. There's been some things I'm proud of that I've done. There's been some things that are hard that I've done. Recently, probably the biggest case in Enid you guys are very well of, that was one of my cases. Very hard to work and do with the community. One of the cases I remember the most about my juvenile work is we get sent to the hospitals a lot, and we get called to the hospitals for bumps and scrapes on kids all the time. I remember walking in the hospital one time, and St. Mary's Hospital, and there's a little girl down there. I was supposed to go check her out. And I walk in, and this little girl's face is black and blue, and both eyes are swollen from side to side. I wasn't expecting that. And I remember that case very well, and that's one of the things that stuck with me over these years is that all of us down there that worked juvenile cases, even the police department, we want to see the best in people. We aren't out there every day trying to put people in jail, I promise you that. But especially in juvenile side, if we can help one kid, if we can help one of those kids get out of a bad situation or help a kid get, or families get in better situations, that's what we're after. So that's where I'm at now.
I'm going to come up and present the plaque to Sergeant John, so congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate everything you do. They probably want some other stuff, and I've got a master plaque I'm going to give back to Chief O'Rourke. This is going to hang in the lobby. If you go there to visit, you're going to see our other master plaque, and his name is on it. So here we go. Okay, question time. I'll start with my question I do every year. Tell us, and I don't know whose bailiwick this is, but did a lot of drug cases as a judge. So tell us about the drug scene. What's happening? I know when I was a judge, for example, we did a lot of trials. This was when you could buy drugs with pseudoephedrine in them, and the people were making other drugs. So tell us what's going on with drugs.
Judge, I can answer that, sort of. The whole scene, in my opinion, is just in limbo. We recently, as a state, legalized marijuana for medical use, and they did that before they decided how that was going to be regulated. So, we're having some difficulties with that right now. We still have the same problems we've always had with methamphetamine. In Enid locally, and not so much cocaine and crack that we had in years past. It's mainly just methamphetamine now. Maybe a little bit of heroin is starting to creep in, and we're doing our best to stamp that out as quickly as possible.
So did you see less cooking and more coming in, like from Mexico or something?
Yeah, it's a rarity that we see any cooking locally. Most of is just being imported from Mexico, from the super labs.
Okay, questions?
I have a question for Sergeant John about you guys, I assume, doing childhood crimes, or whatever you want to call that you work with CASA, go to the Little House. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you're right. We would call it the Yellow House, or the Child Advocacy Center. It's at 10th and Broadway, if you're familiar with it. During our investigations, back in the day, Sergeant Reddick, myself, we used to be forensic interviewers. So if we got a case as a juvenile investigator, we'd actually interview the children ourselves at the Yellow House. The Yellow House now is actually have full-time staff that are forensic interviewers, so they do the interviews ourselves, which takes a lot of burden off of us. When you go to the Yellow House in our cases, they have everything they're a self-contained, advocacy center. Well, they have a forensic interviewer, you get a SANE nurse on staff, they have child advocacy and counselors on staff there. So what it is when we do our cases, we have all those avenues available for people. So if they need counseling assistance, if for some reason a child needs an exam of some sort, it's all done right there in-house. And so, yeah, we use that house daily. Our 3 investigators that do that daily basis that investigate this stuff now, they are there once a day. They actually had to call and cancel a couple for today because we had numerous interviews scheduled for to
You might explain what a forensic interview is and the difference between that and just a normal interview.
Yeah, a forensic interview, we go through, I think it was 40 hours training back a long time ago, but a forensic interview is with a child is, say we go to court and they can ask leading questions, but in a forensic interview, there's no leading questions allowed. You let the child explain to you what it is that they're there for. You give basic opening questions, and the child fills in the blanks just with whatever they can. You can't lead them, you can't give them suggestions. It's just, is the house blue, green, or red? And they need to answer. Or what color is the house? You can't tell them, what answer you want in there. So in our forensic interviews, and that's for court, so that way we're not leading that child into saying something that is not true. We're not after that at all, but we want to know the details out of that child so we get the best information we can.
When I was a judge, I did all of the juvenile deprived cases in the county, and indeed, as he was talking about, some very sad cases. It really pulls on your heartstrings. But we started, also when I was a judge, we started the first CASA in all of Northwest Oklahoma, and CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate, and that's where we appoint a volunteer from the community to come in on every juvenile deprived case and get involved also. So you have a third person outside party. It's worked out pretty good, I think.
Yeah, the CASA program, those volunteers are really good for us because they are, like you said, a third party outside looking in. They'll go to that kid and talk to them once a week, and we may get information from that CASA that we hadn't got that they may be scared to tell their parents or the loved one they're living with, or even the police or the forensic interviewer. So CASAs are a huge asset to us in the program.
Are the children that you deal with, are they mostly victims of child abuse, or are they witnesses to crimes, or what is?
All the above. Yeah, most 85% are usually our victims themselves of some kind of abuse. Now, if we have a case, say a domestic battery case, where a child was witnessed the battery itself, we can take a child there and have that child interviewed by a forensic interviewer. It's a big playroom. It's not like you're walking in the police department interview room. We have table, a chair. You know, we don't use the white light anymore, but the rooms are real small. These rooms that they're getting interviewed in, there's a couch in there. There's a smart board. When they started using a smart board, I told them I'm out because I can't figure that thing out. When we were doing it, it was a big piece of paper and markers. So, but it's a lot less traumatic to the child. That's what we're going after. We don't want to have this kid make this relive this over and over again.
I've noticed that you guys have recently been growing your force. What's the need for that? Am I right?
Well, actually, we're losing, but we're trying to
Oh,
grow.
I
Yeah.
You guys have been adding on. Maybe I have.
We're placing.
Replacing everybody.
We're, correct me if I'm wrong, we're 11 short right now. We're supposed to have up to around about 100 officers for the Enid Police Department. We're at 89, and we're just trying to get more people. Things aren't slowing down for us at all.
We're taking applications before you leave the room.
Yes.
We are doing some different things in regards to like the street crimes unit.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, and actually, that was 4 or 5 people, and now with being so short, I had to cut that back to 3.
Wow.
But their job basically is to solve problems. Say we have a neighborhood problem or a drug house in the neighborhood, their job is to go out and solve that.
Okay.
And they're not really tied to calls on the radio, so they can focus on their job. And it works out really well.
Yeah.
So is that shortage due to retirement or economic reasons, or what do you see that shortage being due to?
The shortage is all of it, economic reasons. I mean, you get, a starting police officer makes about 37, 38,000. There are better paying jobs.
And you don't get shot at?
And you don't get shot at. And, yeah, you don't get, beat on or anything like that. But, there is competition with the oil field, there is competition in the private sector. It's hard to find applicants, to be honest. It's hard to find applicants that can pass the rigorous background up into, including a polygraph. We're testing today, I think we started with 40 or 50 applicants, and we're only testing 2 today. So we've narrowed it down, all the way down to that. So we're trying different things now. We're trying a sign-on bonus and also relaxing some of the physical agility standards to see if we can basically get certified people in. It's tough.
You mentioned earlier with the medical legalization of marijuana, what complications has that created in your world?
A lot.
Yeah.
There's just so much about it that wasn't clear and still isn't. It basically, in my opinion, I don't think that that the state was ready for it to pass yet. I think we jumped the gun on it, and the way that it intermingles criminally is unclear. And the only way that's going to be determined at this point is through case law. And so, this could be a pretty long process, in my opinion. So, for instance, if you have a medical marijuana card and you're stopped by the police, the only way that we can validate that card is to run this, very long, complicated serial number, basically, through the website with the health department. And so, whereas if I want to make sure that you're a licensed driver, you can give me your name and date of birth, and we can run that and verify it. You can't do that with your medical marijuana card. The only way to do it is to have that specific serial number. It's not very functional, and that's just one small example of a lot of the larger problems we're having.
For the marijuana, has it been like a bigger issue with would have a lot of people had marijuana without the card lately?
He asked if we're seeing more people possessing marijuana, right, recently, and I don't think we're really seeing an uptick in that. We still have our typical groups that we've always dealt with that are involved with the illegal and unlawful possession or sales of marijuana. We really haven't had too many occasions yet to get involved directly with the you know, the dispensaries and the legal avenues that people are being afforded now.
So, police officers carry guns. I know there's that rule that says you can't have your conceal and carry license and a marijuana license. Is there officers that are choosing to use marijuana, or are you finding that to be a problem with the guns and you know what I mean? Are they?
No, the police officers aren't allowed to use or possess marijuana or obtain a medical marijuana card. But again, that's something that's unclear, really. You know, that there's no.
It's gonna have to be like a common sense thing, I would think, but.
Correct. Well, you're right. But there's several different reasons that we're standing on that, not allowing our officers to use or possess. And you know, one of them is that we take an oath to uphold the law, and that's, you know, local, state, and federal. Federal law, it's still a criminal act to be in possession of marijuana, so we can't very well take an oath to uphold all the laws and then break them. Even though it might be legal in Oklahoma, it's not legal federally.
And I think on the concealed carry license, that's going to be more enforced by OSBI, because they're the ones that issue the license. Now, if they start cross-checking, they can pull somebody's concealed carry, but I haven't heard of that happening at all. And we're not going to, as far as I know, enforce that.
Do you know anything? I have a concealed carry license, but I noticed that, I'm trying to remember if we've just passed it or getting ready to pass the, what they call constitutional carry. So will that do away with the concealed carry license, or tell me about that?
I'm not entirely sure, Judge. I think that that's actually being decided today, whether that passes or not. But my understanding is, and I don't know this to be factual, but I believe that there's still going to be an avenue to get an actual permit to carry. Otherwise, there's no the reciprocal agreements with other states. We may run afoul of that.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure if that constitutional carry, is that for concealed carry constitutional carry, or you have to have it open?
My understanding is it's everything.
I think it's both.
It's both.
It's both.
Okay.
And I'm not sure whether it covers rifles, things like that. I'm not sure. I haven't really read that.
Yeah, I never got a direct answer
But,
on anything
yeah,
that
my
really
question
say.
is, you know, reciprocal agreements with other states. You know, if Oklahoma's constitutional carry, I think Arizona is. So can I go to Kansas and carry, considering I'm an Oklahoma resident? Probably not, because they're not constitutional carry, so I have to have some kind of license.
I see what you're saying, so you have to have it to go to other states.
I would think so, yeah.
What do you guys feel about that? I'm kind of on the line, because I'm all about Second Amendment, but I'm also like, well, I have a conceal and carry. I feel like I did it the proper way, but I also, what do you feel about it?
I'm not sure.
You could be honest. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. My personal opinion, I think it's gonna be okay. You know, we have concealed carry, we have open carry now too. I've seen, you know, people walking around Walmart carrying a gun. It's a little weird, but,
Which, yeah, they have
we
one, I
haven't,
guess.
with all the years that we've had concealed carry and even open carry, we've had, as far as I know, 0 incidents with people on that. I mean, 0. We haven't had, you know, anybody drawing down on each other or shooting or anything like that. There's been no incidents. So I'd expect that would carry on.
That's what I think.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little unusual to, you know, for officers to make contact with somebody that's wearing a gun. And you're not gonna know whether they're a convicted felon, whether they should have a gun, or whether they even have any training. Training's an issue. Some people shouldn't play with guns.
Yeah, I think the bigger picture there is it doesn't really affect at all how often the criminals are carrying firearms. This has nothing to do with that. And it won't have any effect. And really just the safe handling will be the only issue that we see.
Well, I know in the laws and where you can and can't carry guns, and I think that that's where it's good to have that permit, because you go through the class and you take a test, and then the people that can just constitutional carry, they may not know where you can and cannot take them, and who you can protect and who you can't protect, and things like that.
Yep, great point.
Juvenile crimes, with juveniles being the victim or being the perpetrator. What percentage of those is there some element of alcohol and or drugs? Just best guess. I'm thinking it's high.
You talking about alcohol involved in the kids or parents or all the above?
Well, a kid with the parents, if the child is the victim, I'm saying it's the parents, if it's a juvenile delinquent.
Yeah, We always talk about that kids grow up seeing certain things or kind of go in the same circle. And so we're starting to see over our time, and I mean, these guys have, numerous years combined, more than I have, but they're starting to see kids of the people they dealt with, doing the same stuff. So I would say, it's probably 50-50 on that type of thing. What we're really scared about, and with my own kids, is we had a class here at the police department. We were doing a lot of training on the 780 and 788, the medical marijuana. We did a lot of training on it. The chief has put together a training with some of our instructors. And what I'm scared about is my own kids and the kids we're dealing with is the edible part of the marijuana, like your gummy bears, your cookies, your brownies, stuff like that. People don't realize that that THC content and that kind of stuff is really, really high. And so if your kid gets a hold of a gummy bear, you may think it's a normal gummy bear, but after about 10, 15 minutes, they're done. They're down. And so, and the problem with the edibles is they say, I've never done it, but they say that, you eat one, nothing happens, you eat two, nothing happens. That third one, by the time that third one gets in your system, you have a whole bunch of THC in your system, and now your kid has gone down. And so that's what I'm worried about, just doing the juvenile work, and my guys doing juvenile work, and the police department in general, and my own kids in high school. We hate to say it, but that stuff's out there, and it's accessible to our kids if they really want to get a hold of it. So that's what, I'm worried, and I hope we don't see it, but we're going to.
And the fact that we've just made it a misdemeanor now to have those drugs, right?
Yeah.
So it makes it, they're
All
just out
drugs.
on the street almost every weekend, seeing people being arrested.
What about, do you guys ever refer anything to the feds?
Do what?
If you pick up, so it's legal in Oklahoma, say your medical marijuana card, possess marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
It's still illegal federally. It's still illegal federally to possess a firearm and be a habitual user of an illegal substance, which you are essentially stating you're a habitual user by holding that card.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something the local law enforcement would do if they pick someone up for a traffic stop, they have a firearm, and they have a medical marijuana card? Would you then say, it's a federal crime, we're going to refer it to the feds, we're not going to prosecute you?
Well, the bottom line truth answer on that is the federal guys are never going to pick that up.
Yeah.
Even if we referred it to them, the chances of them actually prosecuting it are almost zero, in my opinion.
Because it's minor in their eyes, or what? It's too insignificant.
Well, yeah, mainly two things. It is relatively minor, and I think probably more importantly is they're not taking a very solid stance on marijuana, period. They've been looking the other way for years as these other states, began with the medical marijuana, transitioned into the recreational use. And, it's become a big industry nationally, and the federal government has looked the other way. So I wouldn't assume that, if that's okay with them, then, on a small scale, we're never going to get them to prosecute a case that you're referring to.
All right. Well, appreciate it very much. We have a little token here.